She smiled like she knew it was wrong, and somehow, that made it feel even more right. It started in a quiet room that smelled faintly of coffee and rain. The kind of afternoon that doesn't ask for much, just silence, a shared space, and the hum of something neither of us wanted to name. I was sitting across from her, pretending to read, but every word on the page blurred the moment she leaned closer to reach for her pen. Her hand brushed mine, not a full touch, just the softest trace of skin, but it was enough to set off something that no sound could explain. She froze for half a second, eyes meeting mine like she'd felt it too, then smiled that small, knowing smile. She always did that, smiled when she wanted to hide what she felt. There was something about her presence that changed the air. Calm, but never still. She moved like she knew people watched her, but didn't owe them anything. Mid-40s, elegant without trying, hair pinned loose, lips that never stayed in a perfect line, eyes that held stories she'd never say aloud. I told myself I admired her, that it wasn't more than that. But every time she looked at me, I forgot how to keep that distance. She asked about my day, her tone light, easy, but her gaze lingered too long on my face, as if she was reading something I hadn't said yet. When I answered, she leaned forward, elbows resting on the table, her chin on her hand. The way she listened made the rest of the world fall out of focus. Outside, the rain had slowed to a whisper against the window. She sighed softly, and it sounded almost like a confession. "You know," she said, tracing a ring she wasn't wearing anymore. "It's strange how quiet feels heavier when someone else is here." I didn't know what to say. So I didn't. She looked up, eyes sharp, yet softened at the edges, and there it was again. That smile. The one that said she knew what was happening between us, and that it couldn't, shouldn't, but somehow would. Her laugh came next, low and short, like she was scolding herself for feeling it. "You shouldn't look at me like that," she whispered, and the words sounded less like a warning, more like an invitation. I tried to look away, but she didn't move. Neither did I. The silence turned dense, heavy enough to taste. Her perfume drifted through it, faint vanilla and something darker, warmer. I caught myself breathing slower, matching her rhythm without meaning to. Her hand rested near mine again. This time, she didn't pull away. The clock on the wall ticked too loudly. A car passed outside, headlights stretching across the window and fading into gold. Time was still moving, but not for us. Her voice dropped lower, barely more than a breath. "You should probably go before this feels like something it shouldn't." I almost did. Almost. But then she smiled, that same impossible smile, and the world tilted. I could see the question in her eyes: would I leave, or stay? Before I could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed from the hall. Someone was approaching, the sharp rhythm of heels on wood. Her expression shifted, soft panic flickering behind calm composure. "Don't," she whispered quickly, glancing toward the door. Then she turned back to me, close enough that I could see the tremor at the corner of her lips. The door handle turned. And in that instant, before anything could happen, I realized I didn't want to move. To be continued. The door had barely shut before silence swallowed the room again. Whoever had passed by didn't come in, just left a trail of adrenaline and half-swallowed words behind. She exhaled slowly, pressing her hand to her chest, then laughed under her breath, soft and uneven. "That was close," she said. Her voice trembled just enough for me to hear the truth under it, fear, and something else she didn't want to name. I nodded, pretending calm, but every sense in me was still tuned to her, the way she leaned against the edge of the table, the faint rise and fall of her breath, the way her fingers traced invisible circles against the wood as if grounding herself. "You shouldn't be here," she said after a moment. But she didn't ask me to leave. There was a story behind her eyes, one I'd only caught glimpses of in passing, photos tucked away, a ring she no longer wore, the way her voice softened when talking about a house she used to live in. She'd been married once. I didn't know the details, but I'd seen the kind of silence that follows being left behind. It wasn't loud. It just lingered, like an ache that learned how to stay quiet. And me? I was young enough to still believe in things that probably didn't exist. Old enough to know she saw that in me. When I moved closer, she didn't step back right away. The air between us shifted, charged, uncertain. I reached for the cup near her hand, our fingers brushing again. This time, she didn't pretend it didn't happen. Her eyes lifted to mine. "You don't know what you're doing," she murmured. "Maybe not," I said. "But neither do you." She smiled, slow, reluctant, a little sad. "That's the problem." The clock ticked louder than before, its rhythm filling the pauses we couldn't break. Outside, the last of the rain had faded, leaving streaks on the window like fingerprints of what just passed. She moved past me to the counter, close enough that her shoulder brushed against my arm. My body froze at the contact, every muscle aware of it. She pretended not to notice, reaching for a dish, a towel, anything that wasn't me. But her hand trembled when she set it down. "People talk," she said quietly. "They always do. I don't care. You will." Her tone wasn't sharp, it was weary, knowing. The voice of someone who had already lived through the kind of judgment I couldn't yet imagine. Still, when she turned around, her face softened again. "You remind me of someone," she said, then caught herself before finishing. "Someone you miss?" I asked. She didn't answer. Just stepped closer, too close, and adjusted the collar of my shirt like it mattered. Her fingers lingered longer than they should have. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. She noticed. Her hand stayed there, resting against my chest, feeling the heartbeat I couldn't hide. "See?" she whispered. "That's why this is dangerous." But she didn't move her hand away. The silence stretched again, heavy, fragile, alive. And in it, something shifted. Not words, not promises, just the quiet realization that neither of us wanted to stop what had already started. When she finally did pull her hand back, her touch left warmth where it had been. She looked at me one last time, and smiled that same knowing, impossible smile. It wasn't a goodbye. It was something far worse. It was permission. The days that followed felt like walking a tightrope. One glance too long, one word too soft, and everything would unravel. We pretended nothing had changed, but even silence had weight now. Every shared space felt smaller, every pause louder. That evening, she called me over to help fix a lamp in her study. Simple, harmless. That's what she told herself, and me too. But I think we both knew better. The room smelled faintly of vanilla and rain. She stood beside me, close enough for her perfume to blur into the air I breathed. Her hair brushed my shoulder as she leaned in to hand me the screwdriver. "Here," she said. Her voice low, even, but her hand trembled just slightly. I turned the screw, pretending not to notice, but my pulse betrayed me. The lamp flickered to life, soft amber light washing over both of us. She smiled, proud, and for a second, the warmth between us felt like something ordinary. Until her phone buzzed. We both froze. She reached for it, a message on the screen lighting her face. I caught a glimpse of the name before she tilted it away. Someone she didn't want me to see. Her expression changed, a quick flash of guilt, then control. "It's nothing," she said quickly. Too quickly. I nodded, but my chest felt tight. The silence that followed wasn't easy anymore. It was thick, full of what neither of us dared to ask. She set the phone down and looked at me, as if searching for something to say. "You shouldn't," she began, then stopped herself. "What?" I asked. She shook her head, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Nothing. Just, people might misunderstand." "Do you?" I asked. Her eyes met mine. The question hung there, fragile, dangerous. She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped closer, resting her hand lightly on the lamp, as if needing an excuse to be near. The glow hit her face from below, softening every edge, turning her into something I couldn't look away from. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You make things complicated." "So do you," I said. We stood there, inches apart, breath mingling in the stillness. Her eyes flicked to my lips for half a second before she caught herself. And that's when the knock came. Sharp. Unexpected. She flinched, stepping back just as the door opened. Her friend, maybe a neighbor, peeked in. "Oh," the woman said, surprised. "Didn't know you had company." Her tone carried no suspicion, but the air between us was electric with what almost happened. She smiled, calm and perfect again. "He was just helping with the lamp." I forced a small nod. "Yeah, just the lamp." Her friend left after a few minutes, unaware of what she'd interrupted. The moment the door shut again, we exhaled at the same time. She laughed nervously. "See? That's what I meant." Complicated. But as she turned to tidy the desk, I caught her reflection in the mirror, a faint smile she couldn't quite hide. Neither of us said anything else. We just stood there, too far apart to touch, yet somehow closer than we'd ever been. It happened on a Friday night, quiet, rain against the window, the kind of evening that made everything feel closer than it should. She was sitting on the couch, her legs tucked under her, a book in her hands she hadn't turned a page of in 10 minutes. I could tell she was trying to look calm, but the air between us was anything but. I sat across from her, pretending to scroll through my phone, though my eyes kept drifting up, to the way her thumb traced the corner of the page, to the way her gaze flicked toward me and then away again. Finally, she set the book down. "You've been different lately," she said softly. "Quiet." I hesitated. Maybe because I don't know what to say anymore. Her brow furrowed. "About what?" I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "About this." That one word seemed to hang in the air like smoke. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "There isn't a this. We're just don't," I said quietly. "Don't finish that." The silence stretched again, filled with the faint hum of the rain and the uneven rhythm of our breathing. She looked at me, searching, then stood up, slow, deliberate. Every step she took toward me made my pulse tighten. She stopped just in front of me, arms crossed, as if trying to protect herself from what was already too late. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "I know." She exhaled, eyes glistening in the soft lamp light. "You don't understand how this looks, how it feels. You'll regret it someday." "Maybe," I said. "But I'll regret not doing anything even more." Her expression faltered, a tiny, broken laugh slipping out before she caught it. "God, you're too young to say things like that," she murmured. "Then tell me you don't feel it too," I said. "Tell me I'm imagining everything, the looks, the way you stop breathing when I get too close." She closed her eyes. "Don't," she whispered again, but this time, it wasn't a command, it was a plea. I stood up, close enough now that I could see the faint freckles at the corner of her neck, smell the faint trace of her perfume, jasmine, and something warm, like rain-soaked wood. Her breath hitched as I brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You keep saying this is wrong," I said quietly. "But you never walk away." Her eyes opened, wide, conflicted, desperate. She took a shaky breath. "Because I don't want to." That confession, soft, fragile, real, broke something in both of us. Her hand came up, resting against my chest, right over my heartbeat. Neither of us moved. The world seemed to hold its breath with us. "You don't know what you're doing," she whispered. "Maybe not," I said. "But I know what I want." We stood there, inches apart, rain echoing against the glass, our reflections tangled in the window. Her lips parted, not a word, just a breath. And then a knock. Sharp, sudden, echoing through the quiet. She flinched, stepping back, eyes wide. Neither of us turned toward the door. The knock came again. And she whispered, almost to herself, "This can't keep happening." But neither of us moved to stop it. The knock had stopped, but the silence that followed felt heavier than before. She stood by the window, arms folded, pretending to look outside. Her reflection trembled faintly in the glass. I could still feel the echo of her touch on my chest, like my body hadn't caught up with the moment ending. After a long pause, I said quietly, "You're shaking." She didn't turn. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing. Her voice had changed, softer, but with something tight underneath it. Guilt, maybe? Or fear? I stepped closer. Who was it? Her shoulders stiffened. You should go. Why won't you tell me? She turned suddenly, eyes flashing, not with anger, but panic. Because it's complicated. Because I didn't tell you everything. I froze. What do you mean? Her gaze dropped to the floor. She took a breath that trembled. It's not just about the age gap. It's about who you are. My stomach tightened. Who I am? Her voice broke slightly. You shouldn't have been here in the first place. I knew that the day we met. I waited, heartbeat loud in the quiet. She looked at me finally, eyes wet, voice low. The man who knocked, he's my ex-husband. He still has a key. The words hit like cold water. I took a step back, not out of judgment, but instinct. The pieces started to rearrange themselves in my head, the late calls she ignored, the way she flinched at certain times, how she'd once said I'm still untangling myself from things. I swallowed hard. You still? No, she said sharply, then softer. No. Not like that. But he still comes around. Checks on me. Pretends it's concern. I could see it now, the fears she tried to hide, the control she'd fought to keep. The reason she'd built those walls around herself. And I realized I wasn't just something she wanted, I was something that could ruin her. She took a small step closer, her hand trembling as she brushed it against my sleeve. You weren't supposed to mean this much, she whispered. The air between us burned again, but differently now, heavier, fragile. I could smell the rain still clinging to her hair, see the tears she hadn't wiped away. You should hate me, she said. I don't, I said quietly. If anything, I finally understand you. She blinked, startled, like no one had ever said that to her before. The sound of a car starting outside made her flinch again. The headlights swept through the room briefly, painting both of us in pale gold before vanishing. She turned toward the window, whispering, If he knew you were here, he won't, I said, stepping closer. Unless you want him to. That made her look back, that same soft, dangerous look that had started all of this. Her voice came out almost trembling. You don't know what this could cost me. I reached out, fingers brushing hers. Then don't face it alone. Her breath caught, the smallest, sharpest sound, before she pulled her hand away, backing up toward the hallway. Her eyes flicked to me once more, torn between fear and something deeper. Then she whispered, Meet me tomorrow. Same place. No one can know. And before I could answer, she was gone, leaving behind only the scent of rain, and a promise that already felt like a mistake we'd both keep making. The next evening felt longer than any I could remember. Every sound in the cafe pulled at me, the door creaking open, the low hum of rain outside, the smell of coffee and thunder-soaked air. I kept glancing at the clock, knowing she'd come, not knowing if she'd stay. When she finally walked in, everything went silent. Her hair was still damp from the rain, her coat clinging to her shoulders. She looked at me like she'd already decided something, but I couldn't tell which way it would go. You came, I said quietly. I shouldn't have, she replied, voice low, steady. Her words said one thing, but the way she stood, so close, so still, said everything else. I nodded toward the seat across from me. She hesitated, then sat down. For a moment neither of us spoke. The space between us felt charged, like one wrong word could break it. Finally I said, He saw me, didn't he? Her eyes flicked up. He suspects. That's why this has to stop. I swallowed hard. You don't want to stop. Her lips parted, just slightly. That's not the point. The rain started again outside, harder now, streaking the window behind her. She reached for her cup, but her hand trembled. I caught it before she could pull away. Her skin was cold at first, then warm as she let me hold it. This isn't fair to either of us, she whispered. Maybe not, I said, but it's real. She looked at me, really looked, and in that moment I saw every wall she'd built start to crack. "Do you know what it's like?" she said softly. "To finally want something after convincing yourself you're done wanting?" I didn't answer. I just leaned in, close enough to feel her breath against my lips. Her eyes closed. "If we do this," she murmured, "everything changes." "I know. And if we don't, everything still changes," I said. The corner of her mouth lifted, just barely. "You shouldn't make it sound so simple." "It isn't," I said. "But it's ours." Her fingers tightened around mine, her pulse quick beneath my thumb. The world outside blurred, just rain, just noise, and all I could see was her. For one suspended heartbeat, either of us moved. The space between us was nothing now, a breath, a thought. Then she whispered, "Tell me to stop." I didn't. Her forehead pressed against mine. Her breath trembled against my skin. And then, nothing else mattered. Not what they'd say, not what it would cost. Just the quiet truth that we'd both been running from. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were wet. "You shouldn't have made me feel this alive," she said. "You shouldn't have let me," I whispered back. And for the first time, we both smiled, not because it was right, but because we finally understood what it meant to want something completely, and choose it anyway. The morning light slipped through the curtains, soft and golden, touching everything it could reach: the edge of her table, the half-empty coffee mug, the worn book between us. The storm had passed hours ago, but its quiet still lingered, like a memory we hadn't decided what to do with. She stood by the window, her hair still a little messy from sleep, a loose sweater falling off one shoulder. I watched her trace a finger across the glass, where raindrops had left tiny trails. She didn't need to say anything. The air between us already said enough. After everything, the hesitation, the guilt, the fear of being seen, there was finally silence without tension. It felt strange at first, like we were waiting for something else to break, some reason to pull apart again. But there wasn't one left. "Do you regret it?" I asked quietly. She turned, her eyes catching the morning light. "You think I would?" I shrugged. "You said you shouldn't have come. That night." Her lips curved into a small, tired smile. "I say a lot of things I don't mean when I'm scared." I stepped closer, slow, like the moment could disappear if I rushed it. "And now?" Her gaze softened. "Now. I'm just tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel." That was all it took. I reached for her hand, and she let me. Her fingers fit between mine as if they'd been waiting for that exact shape, that exact warmth. For a long moment, we stood there, her leaning back against the window, me close enough to hear her heartbeat. It wasn't loud or dramatic, just steady. "Real. You know this isn't easy," she said. "I don't want easy," I whispered. "I just want real." She laughed softly, a sound that felt like sunlight itself. "You have no idea what you're asking for." "Maybe not," I said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "But I'm asking anyway." Her eyes closed for a second as if she was trying to memorize the feeling. Then she leaned forward and pressed her forehead against mine. No words, no hesitation. Just the quiet truth we'd both run from too long. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "You make me feel like time doesn't matter." I smiled. "It doesn't." Outside, the world moved on, cars passed, the day began. But inside, we just stood there, her head resting on my chest, my hand tracing slow circles on her back. There was no more running, no more wondering. Just us, and the stillness that followed everything we'd almost lost. She looked up once more, a soft grin playing on her lips. "You're going to ruin me, you know." "Maybe," I said. "But I'll be ruined too." And then, in that quiet morning light, she kissed me, not with urgency, not with fear, but like someone who'd finally stopped fighting what was always meant to happen. The coffee went cold, the clock kept ticking, and nothing else needed to be said. "Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?"